So I saw an interview with Anthony Joshua talking about snakes and all sorts. So let me offer my perspective, and we're going to go through 7 ideas. So the first idea is this concept of the snake, and his reference was there's always one snake, which is a soprano reference. And when we think about snakes, it always creates this speculation about loyalty, betrayal, and the people around the fighter. So to me, the first question is, what is a snake? And to me, a snake is someone that is disloyal. So someone that is disloyal is someone that is manipulative. Now, some people could argue, maybe successfully, that people by their very own nature are either snakes or people can be disloyal in certain instances. So this idea is that people aren't just good and bad. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. In another sense, you have that slogan, everyone loves a winner. That can be disloyal because when our friends lose, if you love a winner, you don't love the loser, and therefore you're being disloyal to your friend. Boxing, of course, is competition, and competition, you could argue, brings out the snakes in most of us. I wonder what snakes Joshua has been dealing with, and have those snakes been in the ring, outside of the ring, or has he been dealing with snakes in the ring and outside of the ring? And I think if you're going to be successful, whether it's as an athlete or whether it's as an entrepreneur or whether it's as a Homo sapien, you have to learn how to deal with snakes. Then the second idea is that AJ states that money is no longer the main motivation. And Joshua describes himself as older, wiser, and driven by passion rather than finance. Think of that for a minute. The final phrase of that statement, driven by passion rather than finance. I think when finances are achieved, the motivation of a person becomes very different. Most of us will spend most of our lives chasing money and will never be financially free. Of course, everyone's perception of what financially free is different. But if we say that this number represents being financially free, a lot of us won't be able to reach that number. It's just out of our reach. So when the motivation becomes different, the human being becomes different, because it can become about belts, or maybe it becomes about glory, or achieving some form of philosophical immortality, if you will. Of course, we are all mortal, but it's a blessing when our motivations are different. And when I say our motivations are different, our motivations are not being purely driven by money. And then the third idea is that being mentally solid may be more important than any physical preparation. AJ repeatedly emphasizes his mental state before discussing tactics. And the question here for me is, what does it mean to be mentally solid? Maybe we should preface this to what fighters are mentally solid. I would argue Rocky Marciano was mentally solid. Evander Holyfield was mentally solid. Andre Ward was mentally solid. Joe Kozagi was mentally solid. The other question is, what does it mean to be mentally solid? Can you speak it into existence? Can you tell yourself, if you tell yourself that you're mentally solid enough, do you become mentally solid? Or is it something that you're born with? Or is it something that you see and you manifest? AJ was mentally solid against Klitschko when he was knocked down. I believe in the 6th round, he got back up and then he came back to win against a previous dominant champion. He was mentally solid against Ruiz in the rematch, not because he had to get back up, but because he had to implement a different type of game plan to win the rematch. So AJ is mentally solid, but mentally solid is a sliding scale from either 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. And then the fourth idea is the danger of the unknown quantity. And this is when we're talking about Prenga, who AJ is fighting tomorrow. Joshua admits that Prenga's confidence and limited public profile make him dangerous. The unknown can be very dangerous. But how unknown is Prenga? If he was, say, beating everyone in the gym, had a great amateur career, he would have a reputation of, say, like a Mozatama or a Bacoli, who apparently is the undisputed champion when it comes to sparring. So I think, and this is a belief, I don't know, but I think there is a belief in AJ's camp that Prenga is limited and they can take advantage of this limitation. It's an undefeated record, but not an undefeated fighter with regards to ability. However, there's a caveat to this. They thought Dubois was limited, and that was absolutely terrible matchmaking. Prenga, I guess his unknown quantity is his danger, and we will find out the levels of Prenga tomorrow night. And then the fifth idea is AJ's resilience has become part of his identity. So his resilience is a part of his identity. So Joshua references being counted out, I guess figuratively and literally, climbing off the canvas and surviving periods when people questioned whether he could return. The Ruiz fight was a devastating loss, absolutely devastating, but he came back to win. And it's important to realize that boxing is mental and boxing is physical. We know boxing is physical, but it's also mental. Getting through the training sessions, getting through the training, that's hard. Getting through the running sessions, the skipping sessions, the sparring sessions, getting through the fight, that can be even harder depending on the fight. The mental strength becomes important. And later in your career, perhaps, the mental side of boxing becomes more prominent. Question, has AJ's resilience improved? Or has AJ's resilience decreased? I repeat, has it improved or has it decreased? Against Dubois, he kept trying. He was a warrior. This notion that he kind of quit, or no, the notion isn't that he quit, but the notion is that he was dominated, but he was knocked out. He wasn't stopped. He didn't, sit on his stool and give up. He kept trying and trying and trying. And against Dubois, I think it was round 5 when the fight ended, he actually hurt Dubois and then he walked into a counter right hand. So Anthony Joshua showed strength in the Dubois fight. It was just that night, Dubois was absolutely sensational. So people have the incorrect narrative bias with regards to AJ's mental strength in that fight. And then idea number 6 is that boxing is connected to AJ's mental health. Joshua says boxing gives him focus, keeps him in a good place, and keeps him out of trouble. So the domino effect of boxing is positive for Joshua. In boxing, mental health is essential. And in life, mental health is essential. To put it another way, within the boxing context, you need the right mental health to produce the right boxing results. Your mental health needs to bring you clarity, clear plan, clear execution. You're dealing with the moment. You're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with your opponent. You're dealing with your trainer's instructions and you're trying to adapt. Let me repeat that. So you're dealing with the moment. You're dealing with your emotions. You're dealing with your opponent. You're trying to manage and hear and implement your trainer's instructions, and you're trying to adapt what's going on in real time. In other words, there are many spinning plates, many plates to manage. And then the final idea is that the Fury questions reveal a conflict between focus and destiny. AJ insists that his only operation is Prenga, yet Fury repeatedly is entering the conversation. Is that contradiction useful? Does it leave clues? Prenga is now. Prenga is the moment. Fury is the future, a big future. But AJ needs to be present because any mistakes and that opportunity of Tyson Fury can absolutely vanish. Of course, his mind will think of Tyson Fury at points, but he needs to focus on the challenge of Prenga. Think of this. If thinking of Tyson Fury aids his training and aids his motivation and aids his purpose that he brings into the sessions, is it negative? AJ needs to be optimum in this fight. We need a convincing performance. Actually, I would argue that he needs a convincing performance. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community, and that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.